What's up? So EU just got first place at the Vanguard Worlds Invitational. A big shout out, of course, to Different Fight. So if you don't know what this is, basically at Worlds we had some of the best players of every region for Vanguard team up, and then we let those teams fight each other to the death to try and see who the best region is. Let's go. So it was a really sick event. It was in the Red Bull gaming sphere. I'll try and upload a vlog about that very soon. And so I played Granblue. Europe ended up winning, and I was part of Europe, as you might know. So there's Europe, America, Asia, Oceania, and then Japan separately, because Japan also, has their own format going on and so forth. So it was really cool. There were some really great players. Quick shout outs, of course, 50 cards if you need your own awesome Vanguard cards and accessories. Link will be in the description. Use the code Solemn. Zero Damage Gaming if you want the prettiest playmat or the prettiest deck boxes in the world. You can use the code Solemn for a discount. Also shout out to Morgan. She was my testing partner for Worlds. Also shout out to Bram, who tested a little bit with me as well for Worlds. And so this deck is like my Worlds deck with one little change, because I assumed the format would be different for the Invitational than for Worlds. But so without further ado, let's get into the list. So Triple G Nitros is of course your best ride target when going first. It fixed one of Granblue's biggest issues, where like your ride up, if you don't have a G guard, then everything sucks because your first Obadiah is only going to revive 2, whereas this rides up, instantly gets your G zone live and so forth. And if you already have Columbard set up into Ghost Chip, then you're going plus 1 billion. So triple very important, but of course we can't play 4 because V is too important for the bad bounty turn. Then 2 Beatrice, this is the most important utility slot, always has been, nothing has changed. 2 Skull Dragon, because it's a big beat stick, and if you don't have enough CB for big turns with Nightstorm, then you need to have 2, because this will be like your calls from Bone, or your call from Forbidol, like this, and the Beatrice calls the second one, or of course your calls from V Nitros in this order. So you always need to have 2 at least. And then whenever you do have enough CB, your calls will be 1 Skull Dragon and then the 1 Nightstorm. So 1 Nightstorm is also very crucial. I mean, this has been the same forever. Then 1 V Nitros, of course, very important for your bad bounty turns. An alright ride as well, which is really good about this deck. Like if you go first, all of these can actually be decent rides. If you go second, all of these can actually be decent rides. So overall, this deck feels very consistent in the grade 3 ride department because of that. Then for other grade 3s, I am playing the Forbidol, which is really important because it actually fixes one of the big issues the deck has, which is where if you go second and they ride up and then you have to stride Obadiah, then you only get 2 revives, which is just a dog shit turn. But if you have Forbidol, that means Obadiah puts your 2 utility revives, being your back row like Grenache and something else, and then Forbidol does your aggressive revives, being like Skull Dragon Nightstorm or Beatrice into Ghost Chip plus Nightstorm. So Forbidol is basically, I called it Kutire 2.0. It's like a Kutire order, but then for Granblue. And of course other decks also abuse it. This card is crazy and will probably get banned one day. And then finally, a card that's new is Enlargulf. So this card came out right before Worlds, it became legal, and this completely changes the deck. This used to be a Ripple Banshee, which is basically like a non-counterblast plus, but this is way better because it doesn't deck you out, whereas Ripple Banshee does. And it can also pair extremely well with Forbidol, because like I said, the biggest issue is if you go second and you have to Obadiah and revive 2. But if you don't draw Forbidol, you're still stuck with that, right? But what you would do is you would send this together with other send targets, and then you would go Grenache plus Enlargulf as your 2 revives, again your wimpy revives. But then Enlargulf adds back the Forbidol, then you activate Forbidol, and then you have your 2 other revives, being your Nightstorm and your Skull Dragon, or Nightstorm plus Beatrice into Ghost Chip. Suddenly, you had your Grenache revive, which you needed, your attack extender Nightstorm, which you needed, your attacker, which you needed, and the 1 dead body you need on board in order to Lily on your opponent's turn. So this card single-handedly fixed Granblue's last issue. This is crucial. Again, like this deck had one issue that I've been complaining about for years, and Zazan previously fixed it, but Zazan is broken. This card basically fixed it in a very similar way. And of course, in general, like if you draw it, it's really good. It can also, on a bounty turn, if you have a lot of soul, you can just call it, add back Beatrice. Beatrice is another revive, so this is kind of like also a bone in that way. Yeah, I mean, you can also in general just revive it to get back your heals to your hand, of course, only when you're striding. So this is not fully replacing Greed Shade, but it does do something Greed Shade does, again, without decking you out, because Greed Shade is use milling too, which you sometimes cannot do. You need to be very careful actually balancing your deck out and your plussing. Because this deck can go plus infinite, but you will just kill yourself if you're not careful. So yeah, Enlarged Gulf, a crazy card. Next, we have 4 Colombard. I used to be on 2 because we were like grade 2 gaming like mad, but now grade 2 gaming is kind of dead because riding up is so good. So now you need to have 4 Colombard because if you have access to Ghost Chip, your bandit turns are crazy. So like now it's double value. You're not just drawing 1, you're actually drawing 3 if this card resolves. Then the other grade 2s, 1 Greed Shade, again Enlarged Gulf does kind of the same thing, not on your opponent's turn, so you don't have the Lily into Beatrice into Greed Shade utility, but with the 1-off you still have access to that play, and then on your own turn you're usually just Enlarged Gulfing, because adding back heals is like the main thing Greed Shade tends to do. Now of course in other matchups like OTT you might grab Sanctitude or something like that, but yeah, still important to play it. I still use this with Lily very often. Then Cannoneer, this doesn't actually come up that often, it's kind of overrated, but there's still some situations where you really need it. Also against Neo Nectar, if they have like the Anelma setup to double Megaloma, being able to Cannoneer and get rid of that is very, very important. And we have the 1 Ghost Chip, again, like crucial card. Then the 1 Npix. A lot of people don't understand why Npix is played. They think you use it in front of a Nightstorm in order to not have it sniped by like the Nile Griffin type plays. But that's actually wrong, because very often in those type of plays, you create a forward rear guard or you put stuff in another column. So like, for example, on the Bad Bounty turn, if your V Nitro swings, it's going to put a Beatrice there and then you have 4 units, so this thing already turns off. So this is not actually a card used for offense, it's a card used for defense. Because if you put this on your board in the mirror, for example, that will ensure that your board always has a unit so you can Lily them on their Barto turn, which is how you're living. If you don't have this, you're basically giving them like the freest fucking win on Barto ever. Similarly against Naru, except for the GB8, like this is really hard to get rid of. They would literally have to go like Choo, target the column, push, Choo, get rid of it. Yeah, okay, you wasted like 2 CB just to get rid of this, just so I can't like Lily. At that point, this card already did what it had to do. And then also very important against Chaos. If Chaos writes Freeze Ray, they can actually deck you out, because you can never win through Freeze Ray. By having Npix, you can just 2-line them forever and ever and ever. And even if they waste like an entire turn or 2 getting rid of this by like unlocking stuff and then keeping them open to then get rid of this that way, like, yeah, I already won just from like this insane tempo swing of you wasting your life trying to get rid of this card. Finally, it's also really crazy against Nubatama, because some people say like, oh, Nubatama is free for Granblue, but it's actually not true. Nubatama can be scary, especially if they start like reviving your Skull Dragons and your Ghost Chips and then stealing them on their Rene turn. But if you put this on your board, you can actually always revive that shit into the column in front of it, and so now that whole like on ride before ride phase kind of stuff is just dead. So this card is great in a million ways. Oh, also against OTT, because you can have big interceptors to live through Popo, and then the interceptor is protected from the removal, which they do run from Keter. So this is literally utility in like so many matchups, but not for the fucking like Nightstorm protection that some people think. So I see people playing like Urgula over this when it's not even the same card. It's not even trying to be the same card. Speaking of which, in the Invitational, I went undefeated, and then in Worlds, I went 4-2. I was X1 until the last round, and then, you know, shit happens. So yeah, Worlds, not so happy, 14, 4-2, not a great record in my opinion, but then the Invitational went well. I do not think that I had a lot of control over my losses, but you know, it is what it is. Then I played 1 Jessie. Jessie came up too much in like shit matchups mostly, and then it's just clutch CC randomly. Like, this card is technically bad, but there's just too many weird situations where it randomly turns losses into wins, or like the type of, if I played perfectly like I would on CFA because I have infinite takebacks, then this doesn't come up, but because we're human, it does come up. That's the type of card this card is. And then the final grade 2 for my Worlds list was actually Ghoul Dragon, so it's not here because I replaced it for the Invitational because I didn't expect Narukami. So Ghoul Dragon is actually insane because Bell sucks. Like, in the Netherlands, I already didn't play Bell because I knew this card inherently is ass. Like, you think you play it versus Naru, but every time you set up in order to have the bell ready for when you want to empty your bind zone, your opponent now knows this, plays around you having that, and then the bell is dead, and you already wasted an entire stride turn, at least half your Obadiah calls, just to get the bell to set up, and it's a 5k shield that's stuck in your hand, you went hella minus, you lost all of your tempo, they don't even play into it, and you just lose on the spot. So Bell is like the biggest bait ever. Bell is only good into Naru, specifically if you hard draw it, and it's a one-off, so it's utter dog shit. Cut Bell. I played Ghoul Dragon, because Ghoul Dragon, you can just put that in your drop zone, and then it basically does what Bell does without you having to int. You don't have to play like dog shit to play into your Gold Dragon. It's just there, and the second they activate the Draco Kid, or the Vowing, or the Stunverse, it's already being bound. If you draw it early, it lets you retire Demolitions, which is like their only good thing they have, and also it's the minutes it's on your board, again, they can't do anything because they will turn it live by binding it. So Gold Dragon was insane. It was also really good for Neo. Again, if you expected a lot of Neo, like I expected that Worlds there to be like the French guys who are really good players, and they were gonna be on Neo, I was so sure of it. If they do the Anelma play, or they do double Anelma, it's very hard for you to actually remove both of them with Cannoneer. I did that before in the Netherlands, but like to play around that is really annoying. However, if you do Cannoneer, get rid of one Anelma, Gold Dragon, get rid of the second Anelma, that's like way easier. So Gold Dragon was really, really good, but again, at the Invitational, different format, I didn't think Naru would come up, so I cut it. So then now for grade 1s, I'm playing for Tommy. I do not get how the fuck people are playing 2 Tommy. Like, no offense, but this deck is still relatively bricky, and if you do not get the correct ride, depending on if you go first or second, then this deck kind of falls apart, and so you going like 2, I'll draw it, I don't understand. Also, every time Tommy leads to this, or this, your Obadiah turn, despite only being 2 revives, is fucking broken now, because now your revive doesn't even need to get this, or your send doesn't even need to get this, and your revive doesn't need to get this either. So you get like one of the 2, you're already like not minusing at all, and Tommy can literally get you that whenever you do have your ride. So Tommy, crazy, has to be at 4. I don't know why you wouldn't. Then triple Water Spout Jin. So in the Netherlands I played 4, but I was too afraid of Maxime Chalon, who was bringing OTT. I know it's like a ridiculous reason, but funnily enough, I did face him in round 3, so like I wasn't too crazy for it. I did sack him a little, and so it didn't come up, but I do think it's correct to be playing if you go to like a very closed off event like Worlds, where you know, oh, there's like this scary player and this scary player, and I need to, you know, respect them. Also, into Mega Colony, the good Mega Colony players will be on Antlion, and so when you are stocking up on Protects and Water Spout Jins and so forth, being able to randomly still draw into this through the course of the game to then stop the Antlion is still pretty good. So for that reason, I was playing it. Then I'm playing 2 Bone, because you need this in order for your Bounty turns and your Barto turns to actually be lethal. Then I played this only for the Invitational, because again, I expected like the best players to bring the best decks, and the best decks generally have some types of disruption during your turn. So they're like Highlander, Pale Moon if it was Derek, of course, Granblue and so forth. And so I wanted something for these decks. Gear Chronicle, same thing if they have Jet into Hetero around. So being able to like Urgula for your Nightstorm is good on the offense side, you know, but this is not the same as Npix. Again, completely different cards. So for the Invitational, I did find this worth it. Interestingly, if I did play this at Worlds, it would have helped me, because my loss you saw on stream was against Fenrir, and against Fenrir, this is actually way better than Npix. Even though it like makes you weaker to Melissa, it makes you way stronger into Vanargander. But so I assumed there's only going to be like 1 Fenrir at Worlds and a billion Naru, so I thought the Gold Dragon was going to be better than this, but alas, you know, I ended up losing to Fenrir on stream. So I don't think I should be like respecting one matchup over half the room, which was Naru. So I don't know, but I was happy with this in the Invitational for sure. I did call it against Miltai, really nice player, and I basically called this because it made all of his G guards dead, because he didn't have Soul, so Lily and Nora were dead, but then Orion was also dead because of this. I don't know if it mattered in that situation because he was too close to deck out, but in general into Granblue this is pretty nice then. Then I have Honolly. I think this card is dog shit, but I was too afraid of people like Dave and Derek playing like these off the wall insane multi-attack decks, and it turned out Steven was also on Victor, so yeah, I mean, expect the unexpected, you know. Then we have Grenache, Infinite CC, then we have Rampage Shade, shout out to Outer Orange for the SPs. Then I have the Wild Seas Banshees. It's important that you max these out and not this, because randomly, like, discarding this early and then reviving it of Nitros can sometimes be very important. Also, just being able to refill the soul at all times is very important, because Enlar Gulf eats soul like crazy if you use it a lot. Chatagossi is, you know, just stride fodder. Blessed Favor, I do not understand why the fuck you would play blue OT or red OT. I just don't get it. Like, this is so much better. You have, like, important pieces going to your damage and you can heal them out. There's too many good pieces in this deck. You don't want them stuck in damage, so this is like your 5th heal. It's also an extra crit. It's also front, good on Nightstorm and so forth. Like, this thing is crazy. You can say, oh, this decks you out, but like, you should be playing around the fact that this could deck you out, and you should always be counting like 2 turns up front, which you will actually also see me do on the live stream. Yeah, constantly fucking counting my deck just to make sure that I don't kill myself of this. That's fine. That's part of playing this deck, and as a payoff, you get a way better over trigger than the blue dog shit. Then we have the 4 Heal Guardian, because it's Heal Guardians, and like, you can't play CC heals in this deck in my opinion, because whenever you do Barto, you're actually usually not super above 30, and so if you start binding 2 like that, the odds of you missing Barto is too high, and you don't need the CC or the SC, because SC will deck you out, and CC you don't need it because of Jin and Grenache and so forth. If you use them properly, you don't need it. Then we have this. It's sad that it's not SP, but it comes up where sometimes you will Soul Blast this out, and then it's the only ghosty you can revive for Bia, and then that's a 15k intercept like that. So if this is then a Grenache and you have no ghosties, then, you know, get fucked. It's very niche, but it comes up, so why would you use like a worse card just because it's bling? Then for the G-Zone, 2 Bandit Rum, because it's Bandit Rum, 2 Oba. I see some people playing 1, I do not understand why. It's not, you don't have to fucking blindly go Oba, Bad Bounty, Barto all the time. There's matchups where you just go into this sometimes, or like game states where you just go into this. For example, on the stream, you actually against Miltai see me go into Obadiah, because I noticed he was very aggressively playing for Barto, like with like Rough Seas Banshee and Navigator, and so he was gonna deck himself out, and so I didn't want to deck myself out with Bad Bounty in the process, so I was like, fuck it, I'll go Oba into Oba, build my hand. He has forced himself into Barto, and now he will deck out no matter what, and I will live because I built hand instead of minusing myself on bounty, and then I will win that way. So sometimes you need to make that call of when to pivot from pure mindless aggro, and so the second Oba is really, really important for that. Then triple bounty, you need to play triple bounty because the third one often comes up against Gredora. You will notice that if you go like Obadiah and then bounty, you will often deck out, or you will go like Bandit Rum, bounty, you will sometimes just need a third to land the kill. And so like if you're doing this, you're basically saying I auto lose against Gredora, whereas here you're like at least a 20 to 30% win rate, which is more than you can, you know, ask for really in that matchup. It's honestly pathetic that your worst matchup, being Gredora, is still so not auto loss. Like, you know, you're playing a deck like Gredora where the only good thing about the deck is auto winning, and then you're still not auto winning. That's ridiculous. But so 3 for that reason, just to respect Gredora. Then we have Barto. Barto is like a sick win con, but usually you can't really use to, because the second you put this onto the board and you had CB, your drop being at 30 also means that you will deck out right after this card, or at least you have like 2 cards left, so you can't really redo it. So 1 is enough. Harmonix Messiah, obvious is obvious. 1 Galleon, I do not understand why you wouldn't run this card. There's too many game states where you like used all your CB to survive, and then now you can go like Galleon, revive Jesse, big booster, Nightstorm, and then still get solid multi that way. Sometimes without even Vanguard swinging, just because like you're close to deck out or something. And so Galleon being the only stride that does something without CB is too important not to play. Then I played 2 Lily. I do really like the Lily into Lily play, but it doesn't come up often enough over any of the other cards in this deck. Then 2 Nora, this does come up often. I do not understand why you would play 1. Like there's just random situations where you don't have the CB and you do need a big shield. And like if your field got wiped, then this is dead. If you don't have enough drop, then this is dead. So this is like the only thing that's always going to be huge no matter what. And sometimes you just need the 2. And then 2 Orion, specifically for DP. You can't always assume that you're going to have Sanctitude access. So if you're then able to go like Orion into Orion, so you don't instantly die to the Linka, that's very, very important. Also can come up in the mirror because like Barto is insane. And you can't always, you know, win with Lily. So being able to go like Orion actually came up. So 2 is very important. So that is the deck. Hope you found this interesting. Again, big shout out to Chris, Different Fight, putting together this event. It was really, really sick. A beautiful production. I will be uploading the vlog when it's edited. And I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching. See ya.